928-474-4895.
And I'd like to thank One Tom Plumber for sponsoring our KRIM Community Spotlight Program. Good morning, Rim Country. Chris Higgins in the studio here at the Sawmill Theater Complex. Hope you're having a beautiful Wednesday morning. Boy, it's going to be a wonderful day out there. Temperature in the low to mid 80s. So get out the suntan lotion, but you can probably put it away next week because it might snow. No, I'm joking. I don't think it will snow. But you never know this time of year here in Rim Country. Well, this morning in the studio we have Gila County Assessor Sherra Kissee in the studio to talk about the Assessor's Office. Good morning, Sherra.
Good morning.
And her aide, Lilli Pangallo.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lilli. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming in this morning. And today we're just going to talk more about the Assessor's Office and just hopefully get some information out to everyone listening and watching on our KRIM Radio Facebook live stream. So you know kind of what the assessor does, the role of that office, and Sherra. So I guess let's start with that, the role of the assessor.
Yeah, so the county assessor, we identify, we classify, and we value real property and business personal property that's within our county. And then it's from those assessments that the taxes are calculated from. We do not have the role of collecting taxes or billing you for your taxes. That's the treasurer's job. Okay. So, a lot of people want to think that I'm responsible for your tax bill. I'm not responsible for your tax bill. There's a lot of people involved that are responsible for your tax bill.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
There you go. So, and it's interesting because, there are a lot of moving parts in local government, a lot of different departments that perform very specific roles. So that's good that, you let people know or are able to share with people, hey, no, I don't set the...
Yeah, I don't set the tax
taxes.
rate.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that. My department values the property that then those that set the tax rates calculate that against.
There you go. So tell us maybe a little bit the history of property taxes.
Yeah.
And, how they came about and so on.
Sure. Yeah, so property taxes have existed since 1871 when Arizona was just a territory. And it was basically done the same way back then as it's done today with providing level assessments and valuations, providing the appeal process, tax exemptions, all that was established back then in 1871 and we carry it on today. One big difference of that though is that back then it was the county sheriff that did all of it.
Wow.
The assessing, the collecting, the everything was the sheriff. So that part changed.
I wonder how Adam would feel about that.
I'd be like that too.
Hey, guess what? Guess what else we need to do, Adam?
Yeah, let's add this back to your list. So when Arizona became a state in 1912, we just kind of adopted all that was already established and in place. Then it wasn't until 1980 when we started having some major changes. That's when you had the statewide vote that established maximum assessment increases, and the property rates defined what the full cash value is, limited value is, and then placed restrictions legislatively on taxes. All that came about in 1980. And then 32 years passed before we had something else happen, and that was Proposition 117 that came about in 2012 and went into effect in 2015. And what that proposition did was establish limits on the annual increases that we could put on your limited property value, which is the value that your taxes are calculated from. And so that set a 5% max annual increase, and you typically will have that 5% unless your full cash, your limited is getting close to your full cash, and then that percentage will lower a little bit because the limited can never be more than your full cash.
Okay.
Yeah. So that proposition also provided that locally assessed real property taxes would be calculated on that limited property value. Beforehand, your taxes were calculated from the full cash value. And so that proposition changed that to where taxes are calculated from the limited property value. And I'll talk more about that here in a second.
Mhm.
So like I said, those changes went into effect in 2015, which taxed the valuation that was put on your property in 2014, because we're always a year behind.
Gotcha, okay. And then property taxes, you touched on that, well, a little bit, but property taxes have been around since the, you said 1871?
1812.
1812.
1871, my bad. Yeah.
1871, yeah, 1871. So the purpose, you know, if you have people that say, hey, you know, I'm paying these property taxes, where are they going? What are they used for?
So all taxes are to pay for government, right? They're to pay for your the federal government, state government, county government, local government. That's what taxes are for. So let's think about your income tax. So your income tax is going to take care of both federal and state budgets. With Arizona, and this was something new I learned the other day, how Arizona is a flat 2.5% tax. And we went to that flat tax in '23.
Okay.
So before then, and everyone does their state form when they get a job, and they have these like 5 different selections to choose from of the different percentages, and the middle one is the 2.5. And a lot of people pick the lower ones and end up owing taxes. But aside from that, they went away, or Arizona went away from the 5 different choices and went down to 2 choices back in, I think it was '22, and then decided on the flat in '23. So that's your federal and state budget of the income tax. Then you think about sales tax, and so that's going to do state and local budgets and public services. So you have the state sales tax rate is 5.6%, and then depending on where you're at and where you're buying from, that is going to increase a little bit or increase a lot. So Payson, if you're shopping in Payson, you get to pay a lovely 10.48% sales tax, where if you're in Phoenix, you'd only pay 8.6 total. So, you know, even though a lot of us don't like to go to the valley, if you're having a big purchase, you may want to and not get it here. And then we get to property taxes, which is going to pay for county and local governments and public services. And county tax, or property taxes, are the biggest revenue that your county and local governments have. And so that pays for schools, fire districts, community college, library, counties, cities, towns, that sort of thing. And then of course, the tax rate will depend on the budgets of each of those taxing authorities. So your tax could go up because your limited value went up, or it could go up because the budgets of the taxing authorities increased, and more than not, it's going to be a little bit of both. So what if we did away with property taxes? Well, then something else is going to skyrocket, right? You think about states out there that have really low property taxes. Well, look at their sales tax, because it's probably really, really high. That's the only way that they're going to be able to pay for the local governments and for the public services and things that we need in living. Some tax has got to pay for it. So if it's not property tax, it's going to be sales tax or income tax. Yeah.
Well, there we go. So the Gila County, how does it compare then with other counties in Arizona? Yeah. And then other states, like where does Arizona fall?
So of course, us living here, we think that our tax is super, super high. For Arizona, it's middle of the road. We are kind of middle of the road of the other 15 counties. So according to the Tax Foundation, the 2023 data is what is used because that's the completed data, where 24 we're kind of paying on now, and then so 23 is your most recent complete data. And we, like I said, we rank right in the middle. Our median taxes paid is $1,331, and with an effective rate of 0.54% and a median housing value of $247,000. So let's think about that. For median taxes paid, the highest county is Pima, where it's $2,248. The lowest county is Greenlee at only $489. Then we look at the effective tax rate of Gila being kind of in the middle of the road. Apache is the highest at 0.84%, and then you have Greenlee again at the lowest at 0.36%. And then finally, the median housing value, Maricopa is the highest. Their median housing value is for almost $415,000, where then you have Apache as the lowest at $68,500. So Gila, yeah, it seems high. It does. I give you that. But we are kind of middle of the road for Arizona. Then you think about Arizona against the rest of the states out there and what's going on. And Arizona ranks in the lower half of all other states when it comes to the median taxes paid and the effective tax rate. And then we kind of rank in the top third when it comes to median housing value. So let me break that down a little bit. So the median taxes paid, the highest are counties in California, New York, and New Jersey, and they're paying over $10,000 a year, which is crazy. And then your lowest counties are primarily in Puerto Rico, and they're only like $200.
Wow, wow.
I'd like a $200 one, I really would.
Yeah.
And then if we talk about effective tax rate, your highest is in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And they're at 4%, and then your lowest is going to be in the Alaska area at just a little over 0.08%, where again we're at 0.54%. And finally, the median housing value, you've got counties in California which have the highest numbers at almost 1.5 million. And South Dakota is your lowest at just over 45,000. So anyway, just a little idea of kind of where we sit, where Gila County sits, not only in Arizona, but nationally.
Yeah. Well, and like you had talked about, purpose of property taxes is to fund government.
Right.
And the services that the government provides for residents, whether it's in city or town, a county, state, federal, wherever that is, so whatever the services that are being provided. So, you know, like you said, Puerto Rico, very low, and hey, wouldn't we love to just pay $200?
Yeah.
Well, it's just not realistic.
No.
Or it's just kind of, not realistic for anyone to expect or say, well, I only want to pay this much, but I want to receive all these services. It's just not possible.
It doesn't compute.
No.
And another thing to consider is the population, right? So here in Gila County, we're very limited on the property that we have where we could put, residential homes on.
Yeah.
We're down in Maricopa. There's land all over the place, so you've got a lot more people to spread that expense to than we do in Gila.
And then they have more people to serve in Phoenix or in those areas. So, and it's the same, the exact same, when you look at sales tax, because more people are paying into it, so it can be lower. So Phoenix, Mesa, Gilbert, all of those cities have always had lower sales tax rate than most rural areas.
That's right.
Because there's more people paying into, and boy, they're getting a lot more property tax as well, revenue to cover different services.
Yeah, so they're getting a lot more revenue in both areas, the sales tax and the property tax.
Yeah. And the people going down there to save a few dollars.
Yeah, so
from
forget
rural
I said
areas.
that earlier, right? Stay here and shop and pay center or go.
When you can, it's but yeah, the big purchases, it's kind of that balance.
That's right.
But, so, notice of value.
Mm-hmm.
A letter has been sent out recently.
Yep.
From your office,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you wanted to talk about that and maybe
Yeah,
explain
I want
what
to
that
explain
is.
it a little
Yeah.
bit. Everyone got my letter. It's not a nice letter, I'm sorry.
Well, it isn't a mean letter. I
It's
mean,
not a mean
no.
letter, it's just a factual letter.
Yeah, well, and reality.
It's
you know,
reality.
It's reality.
It's reality.
And again, the services, and I know Supervisor Steve Christensen is in here once a month
Mhm.
talking about just all of the improvements, everything the county is doing. Well, all of those functions take money, they require money, and I know staff, Gila County staff does a great job with getting grants, getting money. You look at the bridge that was built, and all of the grant money.
Long, nice bridge.
Yes, yeah, so, you know, you get grant money, you get money from the federal government, from the state, but then there also has to be, you know, the property taxes collected to maintain the roads,
Yeah,
to
that's right.
provide the sheriff's office.
Yeah, we need sheriffs.
We need sheriffs, Gila County Animal Control, just all of it.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go over this as quickly as I can. On the notice of value, at the top of it, it says 2026 notice of value, and like I said before, that's because we valued your property in this year, and you're gonna pay off of that value next year.
Okay.
Okay. So, and it also tells you that it's not a tax bill. There's a lot of people that get this letter in the mail and start making calls about how to pay their taxes and where to pay. This is not a tax bill, this is just information on your value. The tax bill comes later. So, so the first section on it talks about that Proposition 117 that I kind of already touched on, and the fact that you're only going to see up to a 5% increase on your limited property value. So that's what that first bullet point on that letter talks about. Then the only time you're going to see higher than 5% is if you've done something substantial to your property, changed it in some way substantially.
Okay.
And what is substantially? That is at least 15% of the value. So if you have a $400,000 home, then 15% of that value, if you do something, improve your home, that has that cost number to it, that's at least 50%. Then you could see a more than 5% change in your limited property value. And then the other thing is splits and combos. So that means, you know, you have an acre and your neighbor has some land and maybe you want to add to yours, or you want to do a big garden or something like that, and so they give you some of their land, and that's great, thank you neighbor for giving me some of your land, but now it's going to change your property tax more than 5% increase because you have combined, you've either one neighbor split and then the other neighbor combined.
Okay.
And so it could be just a sliver, and it's going to substantially impact your taxes.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people don't understand that.
So with the increasing the value, say that with that example, $400,000 home, you put on a large, garage, separated garage, a separate garage, that's like $80,000, so $60,000 would kind of be that 15%. So you're increasing the value.
You're increasing your full cash value, which in turn is going to require an adjustment to your limited.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But say you put a storage shed on there that's like $20,000, you don't have
Then
to
it's
worry
not
about it. It's
gonna
under
touch.
the 15%.
It'll increase your full cash.
Gotcha.
But it's not going to touch your limited if you're not in that substantial range.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. So the next section on this lovely letter talks about your full cash value and how if there's not a statute that provides for what that dollar amount is, then it's just synonymous with market value.
Okay.
So that number doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you can sell your house for, but it could be close because it does try to stay with market.
Okay.
Then your limited property value, which that's the big number, the important number, right? That's what property taxes are calculated from. It is a statutory formula that comes up with those figures. We don't just randomly pick a number, you know, and it's all statutory. We have no say in that. And I said earlier that that limited property value number could equal your full cash value, but it can never go above it. So that's when, if your full cash value decreases and your limited is the same number, then it's gonna decrease because it can't be over it. The next section on there talks about your classification of your home. Most of us are gonna have a 3.1 classification because most of us were paying taxes on our primary residence. That's what 3.1 stands for. If it's not your primary residence, you might have a 4.1, you might have some other code, like if you've had your property out for rental or what have you. So that's what that classification is for. Excuse me. Then the next section gives your parcel ID number, which is really great if you're calling into the assessor's office or the recorder's office or even the treasurer's office. If you're looking up stuff online onto our websites, having that parcel ID number is really great and helpful to locate things for your property. The notice date, that's the date we sent the letter, and by statute we had to have it mailed out by February 28th, so we got it mailed out a week early. And the appeal deadline, which is listed there, of April 22nd, that's the last day you have to file an appeal, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute.
Gotcha.
Then we have at the bottom of the front of that page there is a separate addendum statement, and it's a very important addendum to read. Because if you own property that you rent out or you lease out, you are required by law to inform the assessor's office that you have rented it out and register it with the assessor's office. And if you do not do that and you just say, they don't need to know, then you're found out, then you're going to pay $150 a day, or could pay $150 a day penalty until you get it registered.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so it's very important that you register those properties that you own out there that you have out for rent. On the back side of that letter gives you some definitions, talks about the appeal process, senior freeze, and tax relief information. So I'll talk about the appeals now, if I may.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so the appeal process. If you believe that your property was improperly valued or improperly listed on the tax roll, then you can appeal to my office, the county assessor's office. So let me talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts on that. You can only appeal the full cash value.
Okay.
You cannot appeal the limited value, and you cannot appeal your tax bill.
Okay.
So when you're filing your appeal and you put on there, I'm appealing because my taxes are too high, it's going to get rejected straight out of the gate because you cannot appeal your tax bill. If you say on there, I'm appealing because my limited value is too high, again, you're going to get rejected because you can only appeal the full cash value.
Gotcha.
So make sure that if you're going to file an appeal, it discusses full cash value and why you think that your full cash value is too high. I don't think anybody's going to appeal saying it's too low.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be kind of ridiculous, but yeah. And so you have April 22nd to do that. Now, the process on it, you can, you find the form. It's called the Residential Petition for Review Evaluation. You can find it on our website, which is gilacountyaz.gov, and then you just simply go to the assessor's page and find the form. You can call our office and ask us to email it to you or mail it to you. We're happy to do that. You can come in person and pick it up, and you can also find it on the Arizona Department of Revenue, so the azdr.gov website, and obtain it from their forms section. You cannot appeal to the Board of Equalization first. You have to come to us first. You can't go straight to them.
Okay.
But you can appeal straight to tax court. So if you want to bypass us and bypass the Board of Equalization and go straight to tax court and pay money for that, that's your prerogative to do so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Huh.
but then you'd have to do that by December 15th of this year, so, yeah.
There we go, so that's the PL process, and I think the biggest thing I took away was full cash value.
Full cash
Appeal,
value.
Full cash value,
Yep.
that is it. If you try and appeal the limited, it's gonna get kicked back.
Again, correct?
Or your tax bill, the property tax amount,
Mm-hmm,
it's that full cash value.
that's right.
All right.
That's the takeaway, full cash value on April 22nd.
All right, so tell us a little bit about senior valuation protection or senior freeze, because this is
Yeah.
a program that maybe not all seniors
Mhm.
know about.
Yeah, I'm surprised to learn anytime I talk to a senior, the ones that don't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of sad because, it could have been saving money,
Yes.
potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the senior property valuation protection, it is in our Arizona Constitution in Article 9, Section 18. That's where you'll
Mhm.
find the language. So what is it? It's a tool that allows us to freeze your property valuation on qualifying primary resident. So on the senior, and I'll finish the qualifications here in a minute, but it
Yeah.
freezes that limited value. And since that's the value that taxes are calculated from,
Mm-hmm.
that's nice. You're not gonna
Yeah.
get that annual 5% increase
Mm-hmm.
that everyone else is gonna get. It's gonna stay at that frozen number.
Wow, yeah.
Okay, so what do I mean freeze? So, like I said, that value that we place, and it's a calculation
Mm-hmm.
from the tax rate calculation deal that I talked about earlier, being at 0.54% right now. That changes every day. That number will stay at that number and be protected and not increase unless, of course, you do something substantial to your property or split or combine. It would change that.
Then it would change, okay.
Yeah. But the negative on that, on freezing that limited property value, is that it's not gonna decrease either.
Okay,
Okay, so if we come into a crash market
yes,
and your full cash value decrease substantially, it's not gonna affect your frozen will stay the same.
okay.
So that's the negative. Now, does that ever happen? It's a rarity, right, to have a crash in your market?
Yeah, it can happen,
Mm-hmm.
but probably the amount of money you would save having that frozen, and as
Mhm.
property values increase,
Mhm.
even if there was a crash for a
Well,
limited amount of time.
remember though, it's only going to increase 5%.
Yeah,
So even if your full cash substantially increased,
Yeah.
the full cash value, so your market value, you went, we've seen that here a lot in recent
Yeah.
years, where your house, the value of your house doubled.
yeah.
Your limit is gonna stay the
You're
same.
limited, and that's what your property tax is based off of,
Mhm.
so your property tax amount will stay the same over that period of
Right,
time.
with the exception of a 5% increase
Yes.
and whatever increases the taxing authorities bring down on their budgets.
Gotcha,
Mhm.
yeah. Which could be significantly
Could be
less
It could, right.
than if there wasn't that freeze, if you weren't
Yeah.
in that program.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the negative, and what we tell people is, if you see, when they come to the renewing time,
Mhm. Yeah,
if they see that the market is going down and coming out of the senior freeze would potentially lower their limited,
mhm.
then they may want to just go ahead and come out of it and then reapply.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So the qualifications to get that senior freeze is, number one, you've got to be an Arizona resident.
Mhm.
You've got to have occupied your primary residence for at least 2 years. You must be at least 65 years of age, or
Okay.
if there's more than one owner, one of the owners has to be at least 65 years of age. And then you have an income limitation aspect to it. So
Okay.
all your combined income of all sources, whether it's taxable income or non-taxable income. So what does that mean? That means the seniors, that all they get is Social Security.
Mhm.
That's included in the number. So
Gotcha.
all that gets added, and it's added together for 3 years, the 3 prior years to when you apply. and you get the median number, and that number has to be under the max income level for that particular year, and it changes every year.
Okay.
So for this year, the income limit for one person is $46,406. Excuse me. Yeah, I said that right. $46,416. Can't make any more than that. And then if you have more than one person as an owner, then that changes to $58,020. So a lot of people don't qualify. A lot of seniors don't qualify because of that income limit.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No. But there are those that that do, and that is a great
It is a great
program
thing.
for them.
And that can basically go on indefinitely. So if you renew every 3 years, and we inform you, we send you out a mailer to say, hey, you're 6 months before your renewal date, remember you need to renew. If you don't, then you're not on it anymore. But if you do that renewal every 3 years, then you can be on that freeze indefinitely.
Wow. All right, that is great. So the final thing, just want to talk about here real quickly, legislation. So,
Legislation.
Yeah.
So, you know, Governor Hobbs likes to veto a lot of things, but she has signed a really great one. One particular bill that she signed recently that affects not only my office, but taxpayers, and this is really great. It's, the number is Senate Bill number 1122, and this particular bill affects the Arizona Revised Statute 42-11111, so 5 ones.
Okay.
And that particular statute has to do with exemptions for property taxes. This is widows, widowers, persons with total disability, total and permanent disability, and then veterans with disabilities.
Oh, nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so this is a great thing, and I'm very excited about this bill being signed by Governor Hobbs. So currently, the total assessment, property assessment, is based on the average annual percentage increase from the GDP, price inflator, the Arizona GDP. Starting next year, it's going to be based on the federal housing price index.
Okay.
So the hope is that that is going to increase those amounts so that more widows and widowers, more total and full disability persons, and more veterans with disabilities will be able to get exemptions because they will be under that limit.
Yes.
That now is hopefully going to be much higher than what we've had.
Wow, that's great. That's great news.
Yeah, it is great news.
Yeah, it's good. So look at that. You are the bearer of good news.
I am the bearer of great news.
Yes, great. Yeah. Yeah, wonderful news. So there you go. Well, thank you, Sherra, for sharing. And if people have questions, what is the best way to contact your office or to reach out to you?
Okay, so they can call 928-402-8714. That is the main number for the Globe office, but anybody can call that. Nowadays, we're all on cell phones.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
anybody can call that number, and if it needs to get directed to the Payson office, I don't have the Payson number on the top of my head, so I'm giving you the Globe number. But we do have 2 locations. We have the Payson office in the Gila complex that's right there next to the post office and the court.
Yes.
And then in Globe, we're on East Ash Street, 1400. And so you can find us there as well. And I am in both locations every week, 2 days there, 2 days here.
There we go, back and forth, back and
forth.
You're very familiar with that road now, aren't you?
I am, and I love it because it's the lake and there's no valley traffic.
No, it's a beautiful drive.
It is.
Beautiful drive.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much again, Sherra. Thank you, Lilli, for coming on this morning and sharing. And again, if you have questions, do not hesitate to reach out to Sherra and Lilli, to the office there, to get your questions answered. And if you know someone that might qualify for the Senior Valuation Protection Program, definitely, have them contact
have them
Sherra.
reach out.
Yeah, there we go. Well, thank you again, and thank you everyone for listening and watching this morning. It's time to get back to the music here on KRIM. But first, we're going to get an update from the National Weather Service so they can tell us just how beautiful it is going to be here in Rim Country today. Again, it's going to be a little bit warmer today, but boy, it feels good, especially after the crazy weather we had last week. Yes, it was a little crazy. So again, we have music from Steve Miller Band, Santana, and Bob Seger coming up right after a message from the Weather Service. All right.
Did I go over too much?
Close that real quick and shut this down.